Hello to everybody watching and listening, and once again, welcome back to some more Mechabellum. I am playing against Lion, a player who I think is about 100 or maybe even 200 MMR above me. I don't think it's 200. I think it's more like 180 if I remember correctly, at least at the time it was. I don't know where he is right now. But definitely not an inferior opponent. I'd say this guy has a lot better chance of beating me than I have of beating him, at least normally. We'll see what happens in this game. Because I remember we were playing some chunky big units, and we'll see which of these win. Now, I'm putting my starting phoenixes on the left. And yeah, I think with phoenixes you kind of need to stack them on one side. I'm also getting some Arclights, expecting that my opponent plays with some chaff, but my opponent is playing completely chaffless. I am playing with the Quick Supply Specialist. I think that is legitimately the first time, or the second time maybe, that I've picked this in my entire Mechabellum career, though I am not really using it. I'm trying to see where the first round goes. My opponent is playing with Heavy Armor Specialist, so I would say he definitely got a better Specialist than I do, but the game is more than just the starting Specialists, of course. Now, without chaff, this is definitely not going my way particularly well, simply because my opponent's marksmen have the ability to get rid of everything. That said, only if they survive long enough, and they don't. Under the tower debuff, actually, you do 50% more damage, or rather the units that are currently under the tower degradation take 50% extra damage, which means that, for example, breakpoints like phoenixes needing 2 shots against sledges change, and suddenly the phoenixes can one-shot the sledges. That's the only reason why I was able to get to that marksman in time. Now I have a lot more money here. I'm buying an upgrade. My opponent drops a shield here and buys some units of chaff. He also keeps 100 in reserve, I see. I drop some more chaff and I drop a squad of sledges. Is that a squad, or what do you call that? Battalion, I think, is way too big to call it that. Anyway, I still don't use all of my money, I think. My opponent snipes these phoenixes. I snipe that marksman and leave the tanks at very low HP. The barrier here might hold up quite a bit. Now that the opponent does in fact have some chaff, these Arclights are no longer super sad. I'm starting to hammer at the force field, and those phoenixes, they are doing some 6000 and change damage, so they actually break it rather easily. The sledges do provide a good amount of cover for my phoenixes, but the crawlers here push through and gut the tower. That is the problem with asymmetrical deployments, which means that my opponent ends up taking the level phoenixes out with the last marksman, while the phoenixes are still shooting at the heavier chaff of my opponent. Not sure if that round was worth investing a shield into, but who am I to judge? Anyway, subsidized crawlers for my opponent. I'm not sure what I took here. I chose the extended range Arclights, yeah. Because this is kind of looking like a game of carry Arclights to me at this stage. Low amounts of chaff, the opponent having some Arclights and some tanks as well. And I need some chaff clear over here anyway and some sustain against the enemy forces. So I'm throwing down 4 Arclights and instantly getting charged shot. My opponent did level the marksman. He still is sitting on, I think, all of his supply for this turn, for this round. Or almost all. I think he spent 100 maybe to level these 2 units. So let's just fast forward and see what he does. He picks up more crawlers. Is he going to sit on his money, or what does he do? He throws down a missile. Now, interesting breakpoint as well. I think I've mentioned that before. With 1 level of health upgrades, the Arclights actually survive a missile strike. That said, they will not survive much longer because there is no more chaff left. So my opponent once more is using some money to win himself a round. I'm starting to be more conscious of the round versus turn, but not all that much. Anyway, I still end up doing pretty well on this side because I had delayed chaff move in, and those crawlers were definitely helping. My phoenixes push through, and they start taking out the tanks and, of course, the marksmen as well. So I didn't think of it, didn't expect it, but because my opponent's chaff clear was kinda not all that great, I was still able to get that round. My opponent is going for some scorpions, definitely a good option against carry Arclights. And I'm not even sure what I end up going for. Did I go for the wasps? Yeah, I did go for the wasps. My opponent does not really have anything in the way of anti-air other than these marksmen, and they have other targets they should be shooting. I'm starting to drop some additional units of chaff. Meanwhile, my opponent still only has 4 units of chaff here. But he now has scorpions, with range, mind you. I'm throwing these units here kinda to catch some shots. He's also kinda going the carry Arclight route, more or less. At least he's getting range enhancement on his Arclights. And he did drop additional units of chaff with his actual deployments and gets a health and attack upgrade. And that is probably all he's going to do. I am getting subterranean blitz with the rest of my money. I stacked up quite a pile of money. So I now start using it, actually. And my thought was the sledges and the Arclights will have a much worse time clearing my chaff, and I definitely have a chaff advantage in this game. Now, especially here right now, I have an air chaff advantage, so I am able to clear out my opponent's forces with the wasps quite effectively, though speaking of quite effectively, that shot from the Scorpion was devastating. I think it got all 5 tanks. In one shot, mind you. That said, I'm still getting the tower, and my phoenixes immediately go after the marksman, so there's no more anti-air, and I end up winning this. Even though my opponent has gotten quite a powerful unit, I have gotten another unit that right now at least counters almost his entire board. I think you can basically scratch the almost here. He's getting smoke, and putting it right in front of my forces. I'm getting smoke as well. He's also going into fortresses. So he has, I think at this point, he has recognized that I want to play carry Arclights. So he's getting fortresses, and to counter my phoenixes, he is getting anti-air missiles. I'm throwing down levers. I did not expect the fortresses here, though it makes perfect sense. The fortresses counter everything on my board, with the exception of the crawlers. He's also throwing a shield here. But my smoke is kind of more centrally located. Ah, okay, he drops another shield here, so now the majority of the smoke effect is not going to happen. I'm starting to drop more Arclights to go into the carry Arclight route. So what else is going to happen? He still has this missile, but right now at least he's not using it. I did sell one of these wasp packs because I expected the wasps to be countered here right now. But, yeah, I mean, he is countering it with anti-air barrage. And I try to missile these tanks, but he's also thrown a shield here. That marksman is not going to die from the missile. Level 2 marksmen are missile-proof. I think he doesn't use this. Does he? No. He keeps it in reserve. I guess he has a combat power coming out. And I think I legitimately forgot to shield against it, which heavily now nerfs these carry Arclights. Now a good amount of phoenixes are still left alive, but he now has significant chaff on the board. These wasps surviving is actually very important. In the end, however, I'm losing on all fronts, and one of the shields stays alive, and I'm starting the next round with smoke here that I can't even attempt to prevent. So he takes quite a big win here, and the fortresses and scorpions are doing good damage to my health pool as well. Round number, what is this, 6? Yeah, it's 6. We have melting points, hackers, saber-tooths, fire badgers. I go for the melting points against the fortress, seems to be the best pick right now. I don't remember what my opponent ends up doing. I want to say he also went for the melting points, but I could be wrong. In any case, I already did sell one unit here, which I think, yeah, it was these wasps. What do you do, Esper Lion? Okay, he got the fire badgers. I'm not entirely sure, but I think these things will just feed carry Arclights on a good day at least. These Arclights are not having a good day. He drops another fortress, puts it on the other side. Though there is no air units here, so that is just a health pool. The melting point here. It needs chaff clear. If chaff gets cleared, it can kill the scorpion and the fortress, even though I definitely think that scorpions should be counted as a counter against melting points. With acid, with double shot, with range, when they have their attacks, I don't think there's much that a melting point can really do other than electromagnetic barrage. And even then, they just do so much alpha damage that they can eviscerate melting points, at higher levels at least. So, missile now here. He's trying to get the crawlers out of the way, which exposes my tanks up front, but I do have some chaff in front of even the tanks. This scorpion basically does half damage of the barrier's health just like that. That scorpion completely annihilates 2/3 of these fire badgers. Next, yeah, the other fire badger squadron also goes down. This melting point definitely having a bad day, but I'm more or less already thinking about in the next round. I think this about is the point where I thought that no, carry Arclights aren't gonna cut it. My opponent is going into Mass Fortress, and Mass Fortress is what I do if I want to counter somebody who is going for carry Arclights. It is basically the only way that I knew at the time, though recently I have picked up one other way to try and go for a counter against carry Arclights. Tower is about to fall, and with that high health fortress moving in, that is the end of my forces. Although for being under the smoke here, they definitely didn't trade badly. I will say that. Another combat power. I guess this also is a combat power, but it's more a unit drop combat power that you can't really prevent. Oil on both sides. He does have fire already. I'm trying to see if I maybe can get some fire here. He is continuing to drop more fortresses. I do level the Arclights, but I think it's officially time to switch away from Arclights. With this many fortresses out on the field, I don't think they can still cut it. So instead, I drop into the Arclight's bigger brother, something that shoots slower, but has definitely more range and more power in its shots. So we'll see what happens here. We do have no protection against the oil. Ah, now we do. See, I'm learning on the fly. And we'll see if my opponent shields. But does he? No, he does not have the money to hit the shield button here. He does apparently not shield. He does not have the supplies left unless he buys out to buy some shields. Is that what he's going to do? That is exactly what he's going to do. I guess he forgot and then realized it before hitting the finish deployment or whatever that button is called.